I'm looking at the map of Skyrim and wondering which cities actually make the most sense to live in. Is it Riften with its beautiful forests and that thrilling feeling that you might encounter something unexpected? Or maybe Windhelm, where it's constantly freezing and you can truly appreciate the warmth of a cozy fireplace? Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We're gonna visit every city in Skyrim and talk about their look, the atmosphere, the climate, the location and safety. Let's get into it. Let's start with Riften. It's got this cozy vibe. It's not too big or too small and everything's pretty close together, making it super easy to get around. The buildings have a really nice design and are made of wood, which is a big plus for me. What really stands out is the beautiful surroundings, especially with all the yellow trees. It's a perfect spot for fishermen with the fishery and lots of fishing spots nearby. It's also great for hunters since the forests around Riften are full of wildlife. The climate is pretty mild thanks to its southern location. It gets some snow, but it's not nearly as harsh as places like Windhelm. If I were to live here though, I'd be a little concerned about the Thieves Guild. It just doesn't feel like the safest place, especially since it's pretty common to see dangerous situations. You've got all these guards in the barracks, but the city still feels pretty unsafe. Honestly, I'd probably stay away from Riften, and that's a shame because I love the surroundings. Probably one of my favorites in Skyrim. Next, let's see Windhelm. To be honest, the vibe here is pretty nice and I really like the design of the buildings. The steep roofs and those beautiful windows that glow yellow are such a cool touch. It looks even better at night. I can't say I dislike what I see. I actually love the whole vibe here. The location's perfect if you like being up in the mountains and surrounded by snow, but it also means the place is freezing cold. Besides that, the walls are so high they block out a lot of daylight. I can't help but think it must feel pretty overwhelming to live here, especially with that constant chill. I prefer it warm and cozy. So yeah, Windhelm is definitely not for me. And well, if you're someone who values safety, Windhelm's got its own set of problems. You can feel the civil war tensions and the conflict between Nords and Dunmer in the city. The next city on the list is Falkreath. I really love how Falkreath is tucked away in the forest and surrounded by mountains. It's the kind of place where you can truly connect with nature. The buildings are all simple and made of wood, but they blend perfectly into the surroundings. It feels like a place for a simpler life. You know, the kind of life a lot of people in the real world long for. You've got the mill, the wood chopping blocks, a small farm with veggies, a cow and a chicken. It's pretty close to a lake where you can fish too. And then there's the cemetery. It has this unique vibe, especially with all the trees around the graves. I love that because in the real world, a lot of cemeteries don't have trees or the ones that do often get cut down. The climate here is definitely more pleasant than in Windhelm, especially if like me you prefer warmer temperatures. As for safety, Falkreath feels pretty secure. There are a few things to keep in mind, like the Brotherhood entrance nearby, Hirsten's presence in the area and the mystery dog roaming outside. But inside the city itself, it definitely has a calm, safe vibe. So to me, Falkreath feels like a small city for people who really appreciate nature and a simple life. It's a place where I could live. Let's go to Winterhold. This city, if you can even call it a city, is practically in ruins. It feels pretty lifeless and kind of depressing. There are only 4 decent buildings and on top of that, it's freezing here all the time. I'm not a fan of cold weather, so living here is definitely not for me. Sure, the College of Winterhold might be a big plus for mages, but for the average person, it's not exactly useful, which makes the city feel pretty terrible. The crime rate is probably low here as almost nobody lives here. So, if you want to be alone, safe and don't mind the cold, you could actually like this place. Everyone has different tastes. Now let's talk about Markarth. At first glance, it looks amazing. The waterfalls and trees, especially the ones that go in such a weird way, are incredible. I love how the waterfall is integrated into the design of the Understone Keep. All the stairs and buildings look great, and honestly, I wouldn't mind walking around places like this in real life, even with all the stairs, since I love walking and running a lot. But here's the thing, the interiors are a deal breaker for me. Everything is made of stone with no windows, so there's zero natural light inside. It feels so claustrophobic and overwhelming when I'm in the houses or shops. It's just not my style at all. If I were to rate the coziness of the houses, it'd be like a 2 out of 10, seriously. Besides that, Markarth isn't the safest place in Skyrim. While it may look like a solid, secure city with its stone walls and towering architecture, there's a lot of shady stuff going on behind the scenes. The city is controlled by the Silverblood family, who have a lot of influence, but with that comes a lot of corruption and secrecy. There are also rumors about the Forsworn, a group that constantly causes trouble in the region. So Markarth is not a place I'd like to live. How about you? Let's see Whiterun now. I really like the buildings here, the paths, the flowers, the market, and of course the Gilder Green. The way the city is built with its layered structure and Dragon's Rouge sitting on top just makes it feel so unique. Whiterun really feels cozy to me and has so many memorable NPCs. Adrian, Bellator, Arcadia, Holda, Isolda, and of course Nazim. Can't forget Nazim, right? It's a city that feels special, like home, and it looks so amazing both during the day and at night. Whiterun has a pretty balanced climate compared to other cities. Being in the center of Skyrim, it avoids the extreme cold. Its central location is convenient, as it's about the same distance from all the other major cities. The city feels safe. I've never come across any dangerous situations. It has such a cozy vibe, and I absolutely love it. I could definitely see myself living here. Next up is Morthal. At least it's not in ruins like Winterhold, but it's still pretty cold and surrounded by swamps. Sometimes that swampy vibe can be kind of charming, but honestly, I'd much rather have different surroundings. The city is small and simple, with wooden buildings, which I actually like, but it just doesn't have that cozy vibe. I mean, how could it with all the snow, ice and swamps around? It's not as cold as Winterhold, but it's still pretty chilly. One plus is that Solitude is nearby, so you can get there fairly quickly, but only if you're willing to go through the swamps. If you take the land path though, it's not much closer than Dawnstar. Morthal looks like a peaceful and safe place, but it's pretty cold here and nothing really stands out, so it's definitely not a place I'd want to live. The next city on the list is Dawnstar, and it's got the same issue. It's cold. In fact, it's even colder than Morthal. At least, it's not surrounded by creepy swamps, which is definitely a plus. And hey, there's a ship, so at least you might have the hope of escaping at some point. Aesthetically, it's better than Winterhold and Morthal, at least in my opinion, but it's just too cold to live there. The whole city doesn't really have that cozy vibe and has nothing that stands out. Finally, we have Solitude. The city is huge, but has a simple design, making it really easy to get around and not get lost. Even though everything's made of stone, it still feels quite cozy. It's the perfect place for merchants with so many people living here. It's a city full of opportunities, whether someone wants to open a new shop or start a restaurant. So, if someone's looking for work, this could be a pretty good place to settle down. Solitude has a cooler climate, especially compared to some of the more southern cities like Riften, but it's better than all the other northern cities. Solitude feels pretty safe overall. As the capital of Skyrim and the seat of the High King, it's heavily guarded, with the military presence making it one of the more secure places in the province. Of course, you can still find some political issues and intrigue here, but typically you won't see any crimes. So Solitude is also a place where I could live. So that's a wrap on our little tour of Skyrim cities. Each one has its own charm and challenges. Whiterun, Falkreath and Solitude are cities I could see myself living in. How about you? Which cities are your favorites and why? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, thanks for watching.